All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Freight Coach. My name is Chris Jolly. I am your host, and I am the Freight Coach. Before we jump into today's episode, as always, thank you guys so much for coming out and listening to this podcast. Without you guys, without this support, we wouldn't be the top rated podcast in the transportation industry. I can tell you that right now because you guys continuously show up and share the show and all of that. And, if this is your first time listening or this is your first time kind of following my content, I also do a weekday live show where we break down industry headlines as well. And rest assured, you guys, anybody who's on my content is active in the transportation industry. All right. There's no theory on any of my stuff because at the end of the day, you guys, we're here about best practices. We're here about elevating the industry and we're here about progress. And also most importantly, it's one of the many reasons why I proudly fly the American flag behind me is not only are we the greatest nation on earth, but I'm living my American dream and I want to help each and every one of you guys live your American dream as well. I do have one small favor to ask. If you guys see value in what we talk about here today, share the show, subscribe, share the show out there, you guys, because if you guys see value in this, your network's going to see value in this as well. I got a very special guest for you guys today. Freight's a young person's game. I'm going to call it what it is. For a lot of us who've been around this industry for a long time, we all say it. For all of the longtime industry veterans like myself, we always say that freight is a young person's game at the end of the day. And, I always think about we got to be, it comes from us as an industry to recruit that next generation of transportation professionals in here because nobody knows about our industry but us, and we have to market it out there. And I have one of those spectacular younger transportation professionals for you guys today. So I have an agency owner within SPI Logistics, Mr. Tynan Guthrie, here today. So Tynan, what's going on, brother? How are you?
Hey, Coach. Good to have you, or good to be on. So I
Okay.
appreciate the invite to meet you.
All right. So you're going to just refer to me as coach this whole time? Come on.
Yeah, I gotta live my glory days back in high school. I gotta refer to you as Coach. It's a respect thing. You know that.
Oh, dude, that's fantastic. So, man, you've been in the industry now for about 5 years, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Right, just over 5 years now.
Yeah. So how did you get your start in the industry, man? Like what brought you into transportation?
So I had a more of a personal relationship with Mike, who's now the VP at SPI,
Yeah.
and one of the operators at the head office had a accident, and she couldn't come into work for a little bit, and they sort of were desperate to get somebody to fill her role. And they didn't really know where to go. And Mike sort of said, "Hey, I can get you an interview with the then VP, which was Greg Davenport." And he said, "I can't guarantee anything, but you can talk to him and see if anything can work out." And so after talking to Greg for a little bit, I sort of just ran it by him that I didn't have any experience in the industry, but I would be willing to work for free. And I think that caught him off guard because I understood that I wouldn't make him any money for the first little bit. So it wouldn't be fair for me to pull funds from their budget when they're training me. And so I offered work for free on an interim basis for probably about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months before I really saw any money come through. And that's sort of how I got my foot in the door, was just working for free and proving my worth. And they saw someone fit.
I love that because I hear that a lot from uh the entrepreneur community and some of the people that I follow that are very, very successful founders of businesses. And because they get asked all the time, like, oh, how do I get in with people? And they're like, go offer to work for free. Go offer to work for free and observe and learn. And they're like,
Yeah.
you'll never go without at that point. So it's interesting to hear you bring that up, man. And so what keeps you around though? You're a young guy, what keeps you back to freight all the time, man?
Yeah, it was so like right at the end of that sort of 6 month period before I really saw any funds come through. SPI hosts this annual rendezvous where all the freight agents that are in their network can come to wherever it is. It's usually once every other year. It's in Vancouver, and the coinciding other year it would be somewhere in US or Canada that's not in Vancouver. But it just so happened that this year was in Vancouver. And so at the 6 months, I went to that, and it was such a cool gathering. When you walk into the conference room, there was all different kinds of people, beautiful room, and different nationalities, different backgrounds, different personalities. But the one thing I didn't see was a single person under 30 years old in this entire room of
Oh,
who
wow.
knows, 100 people. There wasn't a single person under 30 years.
Yeah.
And they're all making great money, all have a great life, and not one bad thing to say about the industry. And so when you see that as a young guy, you either wonder if this is a dying industry and you know that transportation is not going anywhere,
Yeah.
or maybe there's a way that you can make some money in this industry too, especially with how young and eager and willing you are to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that holds true with every business at the end of the day in any industry, man. Is it's like, how hard are you willing to work? Because that's one thing that like I thought I worked hard until I started my own company.
Mhm.
That's why you guys can't see this, but like that's why I got the salt and pepper look at 36 years old is the stress and everything that comes along with it. But again, it takes a lot more effort. But man, when you figure out how to make money for yourself, you'll never go back because it's addicting, man. And it truly shows you what you're capable of. So, like for me personally, man, that's been like the greatest gain from all of this stuff of this entrepreneurial journey that I'm on is that I am fucking capable of doing whatever it is that I set my mind to. It's just a lot harder. And I see why people quit, man, because you can probably attest to this. The highs are high and the lows are fucking low. And it's
Yeah.
managing your emotions in those moments that really are key to you making it. And to me, it's there's no difference between building a book of business in freight and building an actual company because you're going to put forth a lot of effort to get a couple of customers out there, but when you get them though, like that's why you have to value them so much. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. And then like if something goes wrong, they give up. Like at the first sign of adversity, man, most people stop.
Yeah, that's so true. Another thing that I like about it is if you're working for somebody and you're in a team environment, you might be doing twice as much work as anyone else on that team. That doesn't mean you're going to be making twice as much or have twice as many perks or anything. They're not going to be compensated for that extra work. Where if you're in this industry and you're a go getter and you put in twice as much work, you're going to have twice as much money, twice
Yeah.
as much freedom, however much you want to value. Whatever you value, you're going to have twice as much of it if you work twice as hard.
No, absolutely, man. So like what have you found out there, doing this for your own, especially because it's like, you're coming up in the industry, and there's going to be people out there who are listening to this, man, who they're in your position as well. They might be working for somebody else right now. What is your big thing about owning your own agency and doing that, especially as a young guy, man, when most people seek security of the salary and everything else and that comes along with it, you're taking the opposite route. What do you go through in that, man? Like why do you prefer this?
Because I don't think even if you're working for somebody, there's no such thing as security. You're seeing that
Yeah.
right now, just on the top of my head, when you're looking at the news, you see all these layoffs happening. And these are guys that had the full degrees, doctorates, any level of education. They're working at a company like Twitter for years, no headaches. They just had the security, quote unquote. And then all of a sudden, one day, someone else comes in completely out of your control and takes that from you. And you're left holding the bag, really, essentially. Whereas this, nobody's going to steal from you. It's up to you. And if you put your work in and prove your worth, nobody can really let you go because they're so dependent on you. And you can really grow it from there. And to me, that's more secure than having the quote unquote like security that you might have employed by a large organization.
No, I'm right there with you, man. Like I guess to kind of tie in with what I was saying earlier, man, I'll take the stress of working for myself over the stress of working for somebody else any day of the week. And, because again, what is secure? Like I think the most secure job out there is me betting on me because I know for a fact I won't quit. Like I know for a fact, like as the market changes and everything else, man, like I'm just going to double down and triple down. I'm just going to work harder and know that I'm going to protect myself. Like I don't like the uncertainty of appeasing, like fuck, man. I know that I've had jobs where like I was more concerned about making sure my boss liked me than I was about my actual results because I knew if my boss liked me, I'd still have a job. Like think
Yeah.
about how much that costs companies in the
Yeah.
long run, or like knowing that you could literally just catch somebody in the wrong moment and they're just going to fire you. People are that petty
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Totally. I agree 1000%.
It's yeah, so, like, that's my whole thing with going at it and, because again, man, I don't wanna look back. Because, dude, if I could go back and be your age, I wish I could have started then, like, I wish I would've. Like, I understand that it wasn't meant for me and my journey and my path and everything, but, man, that's one thing that if I could change, dude, I would've started earlier at this because I just love the satisfaction of building something from nothing. And especially like, because like talk about that, man, for you going out there and prospecting customers and everything. What was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome as a young sales rep in the industry?
Yeah, it's sort of my situation was sort of unique because I sold myself almost to other agents to prove value to them because I still needed so much to learn coming out at like 21 years old. And I didn't want to act like I knew it all because I don't think that's fair to be dishonest to your customers and say you can do something when you really can't get it done. And it's better to learn and to pay your dues almost. And so I sold myself to other agents. For instance, when I was pretty new, one of the agents at SPI, Colette, she tried hiring a couple of different people and she just couldn't find somebody that fit good because no one was really willing to put aside personal issues and just grind hard and work. And so she gave a shot to me, and I still work with her to this day, 5, 6 years later. We still have an awesome working relationship. We work side by side. 6 years in, she's taught me more than anyone can know. And a couple other agents, like Brad, has come through and helped me a ton, learning a whole nother side of the industry, something that I never knew with niche products that we're moving. And that's sort of how I sold myself. And then on the way, Colette and Brad, they've sort of given me the freedom to also build my own book of business, which has been awesome. And it's been so nice that they could help me on the sales side as well as the operations side. So that way, when you're working so hard and you finally get that customer, you know how to service them so good that they're loyal to you and they don't even look, they don't shop around, they just trust you and you work with them on all their projects.
So how did you get to that point of that loyalty with that customer? Because I think that's one of those situations, man, where people have a hard time grasping on the amount of effort that it takes to get there. Because I think like the problem with our society is everybody wants results yesterday. Like they don't want to work for it. So like how much effort did it take you to get to that point with some of your shippers?
Um, Man, years. The one that I just talked to last week, he works with a distributor, and usually I do customer pickups for him on his behalf rather than the distributor finding and sourcing their own trucks as they do with 99% of their customers.
Mhm.
But he fights for me to be his guy to pick up there. And they actually got bought by this huge national company. And I told him, I was like, listen, we actually work with that huge national company. And I know what they do. They're just going to post on load boards. And it's fine if you want to do that. They might be able to save you a little bit of money because they're going to go out to 1,000 different brokers. You might be able to save $100 per load, but you're going to have really poor communication. You don't know who they're going to put on you.
Mhm.
And I was like, whereas we've had 3 years together now and we haven't had any issues. If there is a claim that's involved, he knows that there's only one guy he has to talk to and we get it sorted out and taken care of right away, which he loves.
Mhm.
And he told me, he's like, no, I would never even think about going to anyone else. He's like, I hope you don't shaft me because I'm so loyal, but he's like, I'm not doing anything. I don't send one other email out besides to you.
Yeah, dude, and it's I love hearing that because it is, man. It is that give and the take, and it's I think it's like you need to be so responsible with how you are working with your customers hand in hand because again, like they know if you're gouging them. They know because
Totally.
they're gonna check the market. It's their due diligence. It's their fiscal responsibility to do that. And I've always just been of the mind, well, not always. After I've been out on my own now, I take it as I know how hard it is to earn somebody's business that I will do everything to continuously provide value to get the next shipment. And I look at
Mhm.
things from a 12-month cycle now. I used to look at it from a 12-second cycle, as in how much money can I make off of this one transaction? Where now I'm like, this is an unlimited cash flow opportunity if I just do the right thing. And that
Yeah.
is the magic pill, you guys. It is truly doing the right thing no matter what. And I want to challenge everybody to think about it like this. How would you want to receive information if you were in their seat? If you were a shipper or receiver and something was going wrong, how would you want to receive that information? because I know how most people would answer that is they would want to be notified of it in a timely manner. It's also like if you were receiving a solicitation email or a solicitation phone call, why do we do the whatchamacallit? Why do we perform the actions that we find repulsive in our personal life, yet we apply that in our professional life and think that that our prospects are going to be open to that stuff?
Yeah, that's so true. And I'd be peeved if I didn't mention the mentor Colette. Her customers have been with her for like 15 years. She
Yeah.
is so awesome at maintaining that. And like you said, it's just because whenever there's an issue, the odd time that there is, she is so honest and straightforward. And it doesn't matter how many loads they throw at her, she'll get them taken care of. If she has to work till midnight, she's an absolute workhorse. And
Yeah.
it's been so cool to learn that. To like, I think that's why I got so lucky too, is just because the people that took chances on me were so cool and so good at what they do. To learn from that is that's the best way you can to progress in the industry.
Yeah. No, I'm right there, but it's also, I think the best way to progress is understand that you don't know anything, and be
Yeah.
open to that fact because again, man, a lot of the stuff with like, I use myself as an example in a lot of the stuff that I talk about because man, I was a fucking disaster when I started, like just like most people, man, when I got into this industry, dude, I thought I knew everything and reality has a great way of coming to remind you that you don't know shit. And I think that the more open you are to that, like, hey, I know nothing. Like that's kind of my mentality these days is I don't know anything. I'm always open
Yeah.
to learn more because the second that you think that you have it all figured out, man, that's when I've always found myself in shitty situations. And I like going in with an open mind on stuff. Like, yeah, I'll put my work ethic and my industry knowledge up against anybody's in the industries. And I can say that with 1,000% confidence. But I also am confident enough to know that I don't know everything. And I'm open to learning new ways about it. And it's like if I could go back and tell myself anything, is it's like humble yourself a little bit, not like internet humble, like the people are like,
Mhm.
oh, you got to be humble on all that. Like actually
Yeah.
go into situations and be open to the fact that you can learn from conversations with everybody. Because man, you would be surprised, and I think most people are kind of closed off to this. On You would be surprised at how many people actually want to help you if they can tell you're open to being helped.
Totally, totally agree. And be open to talking to everybody. It doesn't matter if they're just a loader or a forklift operator or a truck driver. I got my best insights into how the operations work by just talking to truck drivers that were bored on their commute between New York and California. They gave me a call and they're like, oh, a lot of times the brokers don't want to talk for this long, but I'm like, you're asking them questions because they're the ones that are picking up at your shippers or delivering at the consignees. And they know more about it than you do a lot of times. And pretty cool insight you can learn by just being open and talking to every level that's involved in the supply chain.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I think, because like my whole perspective is, carriers and customers are 1A and 1B of importance to me because as a broker, we don't have a business without carriers. And especially like a solid carrier network is worth its weight in gold. Like I literally, before this conversation, I interviewed a shipper that isn't a customer of mine. It's just a friend in my network. And we talked about all of this stuff. We talked about carrier loyalty. We talked about doing all of these things time and time again. And that's what they look for. And he honestly gave a ton of phenomenal insight into that
Hmm.
world. And again, it's like if you want to build up a carrier base, talk to carriers. Don't listen to me. Like at the end of the day, like don't take my word for it. Go and do what you did in those situations. Talk to a truck driver and
Yeah,
actually listen to what they're looking for. And
yeah,
it's amazing how your perspectives change in those moments.
totally. Yeah, I agree 1000%.
So I mean, are you about the niche, man? Like when you've been building up your book of business, are you all about the niche? Do you go after a couple of certain customer freight types, or are you kind of going for it, man? Where's the early success that you found from that thing? Because I think that's probably the most DM'd question I get is how do I find shippers? What do I do? What do I say?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think when you're first starting out, I don't think you have the luxury of going niche.
Interesting.
It's
Why
you
is
gotta view the world of abundance, as I've heard other sales experts talk about, like, there's so much, you just don't be closed off to anything, you don't know what it's gonna do. You might hear a broker say, oh, I would never move that. Yeah, there's no money in that. But there's a thousand other brokers that are finding ways to make money in that category. So I don't think you need to have a closed off mind. Just view it as abundance and look for anything and everything you can get your hands on. And I think that's how you're going to learn and view it like how you did with your customers, viewing them as long term. Like, understand that, especially if you're coming in at a young age, you have time to find your niche. But why hold yourself captive to a niche when you're first starting? That doesn't even make sense to me. It's find anything and everything you can get your hands on and moving, and then maybe 5 years in, you can start to hone your skills and be the industry leader in a current niche that you really like. You find makes most money for least amount of headaches or whatever value you place on it.
Hmm. No, it's interesting. I mean, I'm the opposite of that. I believe in the niche
Mhm.
and going after a singular freight type because I feel like if you're building up your book of business from nothing, it's every shipper of a, every produce shipper has the exact same problems. You know what I mean? If
Mhm.
you can tailor
Yeah.
that, I think that helps you progress. But like, and I don't want to confuse people when I say this. I won't turn down business, right? Like if
Yeah.
somebody comes to me and they're like, "Hey, will you move this?" Fuck yeah, I'll move this. I'll find a way to move that. Unless it's completely out of my comfort zone, unless it's something that like I've literally never done before. At that moment, I'm going to refer them to an expert in that field because I think it's more detrimental to your career long term by overpromising in situations. Um, and I have found so much more success in going after like a singular trailer type, whether it's flatbed, whether it's reefer, whether it's dry van freight, and building up your book of business on that. But if my customer who moves reefer freight, for example, comes to me with a dry van load or a flatbed load, I'm gonna take the load. Like I'm going to move it,
Mhm.
But I think if you're going out there and building from scratch, having that product offering to start that singular focus, I think that you can advance with that and then you expand out from there.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. I might be talking about a different age group. I might be talking to the 20 25s that are still so young. They can still build off the niche, but I do see where you're coming from. Yeah. If you have sort of knowledge and you can sort of use that knowledge to your ability coming in, if you're just starting out, like maybe you're already in the industry, but you want to become a freight agent and have all the freedom that comes with it and you know what you work best with. Yeah, totally. I totally get it.
Let's talk about that freedom because like it's interesting to me, like I mean, I don't want to pull the old man thing or anything like that, but it's like, dude, because I like and I say this because if we want to attract talent, younger talent in that next generation into the industry, you can't talk to a guy like me because like what's important to me is a married 36-year-old father. Like, bro, I want to go home and go to bed at like 8 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I like my structure and like, but Chris at 25, different fucking story. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
for you, man, like the like what is the most appealing thing about your current scenario about being an agent and getting out there and what would you say to people who again are maybe stumbling upon this that are like, man, I kind of want to do freight. I want to get into the industry.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to try it. What do you have to lose? Especially as an agent, you're not risking capital, you're not risking maybe a little bit of reputation within the industry if you completely fail it, but people are so willing to help you. There's no risk to try it, and the freedoms that provides are really limitless. You can make as much money as you can imagine if you really grind hard. You can be home every night. You don't have to commute into the office if you're working from a home office, and you don't have to really beg for time off or be worried about your boss because you can work from wherever you want to in the world as long as you have Wi-Fi and cell service.
Mhm.
I could be in Mexico right now doing my job, or Cabo, or Cayman Islands, or wherever the future holds. You can be wherever you want, which is pretty cool to have that freedom.
And I think that that's what comes along with this industry for the most part. If companies offer remote work or something like that, because again, man, it seems like you're like that next generation that's coming up, man, they want that flexibility of being able to, whether it be work remote, work from home, do whatever they want to be able to choose. And it's like, my philosophy is pretty simple. If you're collecting a W-2 from somebody, if they tell you you got to come into the office, you got to come into the office. But there are alternatives out there, like you're talking about, man, like getting in and becoming an agent. Like if I was a couple of years in to the industry, man, I would have became an agent so much earlier if I even knew
Yeah,
about it
totally.
because of that. But, because it is true, man. Like, if you really want to make it in business, like, you have to be able to work from everywhere, like, and it's a sacrifice, but it's a short-term sacrifice because to me, it's about that long-term reward. And it's like, man, I can leave at any point in time. Like, if my son plays a violin, man, he has concerts and stuff like that, man, I can leave whenever the fuck I want and go do whatever the hell I want. I get all my work done and stuff throughout the day, but there is that flexibility. So I feel like for people to understand truly, if you want that work-life balance, man, it's created, but you'll never, in
Totally.
my opinion, I can't say never, but for the most part, you're gonna be hard pressed to find that in a W-2 environment. Because I mean, dude, how many people like I want like when my son is in his early 20s, man, I want him to travel and experience the world. Like, I want him to get out there and I want him to have that opportunity where it's like, dude, I want my team as my team and companies grow, dude. I like if I don't care where you're working from, as long as if I tell you I need something by 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, it better be in my inbox by 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. You can work from wherever you want, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Too
So,
much freedom is awesome.
dude, it is. And but how do you keep yourself aligned though? Because I think another thing that some people might struggle with is too much freedom can be a bad thing if you don't hold. So, like, how do you structure out your day? Like, how do you hold yourself accountable to get your critical tasks done?
Yeah, it could be your personality too coming into the industry or how you were growing up. Now that you asked, that's a good question. Like I'm just a structured guy. I like routine. You can ask my wife. She gets her. She can tell where I am, what I'm doing at any time of the day, Monday through Sunday.
Yeah,
Weekends, I'm just such a structured guy, loving routine. So it's pretty easy, and you just get motivated to not disappoint. That's what my motivation is. I don't want to disappoint anybody. I want to live up to my reputation and that I built over the last 5 years. And whether it's with Colette, working with her still, she holds me accountable. So I got to live up to my reputation with her. Other mentors, like I've mentioned, the Brad, I live up to my reputation with him over the last couple of years. And even SPI as a total and my own personal customers, once you like build that reputation, you see how they lean on you. It's you just have to deliver, and that's what my motivation is I don't want to fail anybody.
yeah. And dude, that's where you're gonna find a lot of success with it because I like your reputation, especially in freight, man. That's all you have, and your reputation follows because if you burn somebody, they'll never forget you, and that's not a good thing. Like, they
Yeah.
will literally never forget you. And it's like I've been in those situations where you're cold calling customers, and they're like, "Oh, I don't work with you guys." Well, why not? Well, such and such rep from 5 years ago did us so wrong. We'll never work with your company ever again. So again, think
Yeah.
about that. Like, your actions have your consequences. But again, you can literally set yourself apart so quick if you are literally just willing to do what everybody else isn't willing to do. Because anybody's great, man, when it's easy, right? Anybody can do any fucking job on earth when it's easy. But where you separate yourself is when things go wrong, when there's an issue, when there's a problem. That's when all you have is your name and your reputation and your action at that time. And if you're willing to not hold yourself accountable in other moments, you're not just going to start doing it. Again, like, I think it's a lifestyle adaptation in total, man. You have to hold yourself accountable in every area of your life because again, it's like right now when we're recording, it's right before the new year, man. Everybody's like sitting here saying like, "Oh, next year is going to be my year." It's like, motherfucker,
Hmm.
January 1st doesn't all of a sudden create discipline. It doesn't create the opportunities. You got to start right now. If you're serious about something, man, you got to start literally this second. You can't wait another second if you're serious about it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you don't believe in New Year's resolutions.
No, they're bullshit. It's a complete bullshit line people tell themselves because again, it's like, why? Oh, I got to wait through, the next 17 days. It's just like with cold calling and stuff, dude. And
Yeah.
like building the book of business. They're like, "Oh, nobody's answering their phones right now. I'll call next year." You go ahead and do that. You go ahead and
Yeah.
wait. I am going to be in their ear every week, every
That's
single
so
time.
funny.
Because that's just my mentality because I know for a fact, man, like, people don't just like you don't just start. And I use myself as a prime example of this, man. For 34 years, bro, I was the king of New Year's resolutions. I was the king of I'll start
Mhm.
on Monday. And guess what, man? That got me fucking nowhere, you know?
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
for me, dude, it's like if you're gonna find success in business, don't wait. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till the new year. Don't wait till the first of next month. It's a game that you have to be committed to every single day. Like again, back to that work-life balance, man. If you want work-life balance, you can create it. It's just not in the form of, oh, I want to get up at 9. I want to work till 11 and then I'm gonna go golf and then,
yeah.
I'll be fine. It doesn't look like that. You can get to that point at some time, but it takes a lot of work, man. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure, and I know other guys, especially now that I'm gonna be turning 27 here, and a lot of other friends have ventured on to their own entrepreneurial path. Um, and they sort of are in the construction side, so they might have a slow day on a Thursday, and they invite you to go golfing or to go over and for a long lunch, and those are the days that it really matters that you're being strict with your time, and that's when you gotta grind because it's tough. You do want to take it, you want to owe it to yourself, but especially through your 20s, I don't know, maybe it's different when you get older, but I could never because I just want to keep working so hard until you don't really have to.
Yeah, man, for me personally, it's I think that the moments, again, back to like anybody's good when it's easy, just like anybody you can put in the work when you're motivated. But it's those moments that you're describing right there. And again, I'm not you don't have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be successful. All right. Like you don't have to work 28 hours a day or whatever all these motherfuckers try and tell you.
Yeah,
But it's truly the greatest separators are holding yourself accountable when you don't want to do stuff. All right. Because
totally.
it is easy in those moments when you got a buddy or a friend who's just like, hey, let's go meet up for lunch. And you're like, hey, I got an hour and I can meet up. And then they got a slow day. So like, oh, come on, let's have a beer now, or let's go do this and that. It's those moments, like those are those separators, where it is holding
Totally.
yourself
Yeah.
accountable to get back, or not looking at your day and being like, oh, that can wait till tomorrow. If you've committed
Mhm.
to something at that point, because again, if you kick it to tomorrow, I'm getting the work in that day. That's my mentality. Like I know for a fact that if I commit to something, again, back to my name being like that, my reputation's all I have, and if I
Mhm.
commit to something, I'm going to be there and I'm going to give it 110%. And I'm not going to fuck around with stuff, cause like when I'm here, I'm here. Cause otherwise my day, like I have a lot going on. I have to hold myself accountable to that schedule and that structure. Because again, if I take my foot off the gas, if I deviate away and say, all right, you know what? I'm just going to not do my work today, then I'm behind tomorrow. And then that leads
Yeah.
into the next day. And that snowball becomes real. And then all of a sudden, you look up and you're like, I'm buried in work. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then you start rushing to get through things. And then you're working half ass. And then that's noticeable, in my opinion.
Yeah, so what helped you, or do you find it was just in your nature to be that type of driven guy? Or was there anything that helped you when you were first starting out?
Uh, yeah, I had no options. I like when I first started in business, out on my own, man, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. Nobody was hiring. Nobody was doing anything.
Mhm.
I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. I had just moved to Arizona with my wife and my son. And I'm like, if I don't perform, my family doesn't eat. And
Yeah.
that's what's in the back of my head every single day is if I don't perform, my family doesn't eat. My son doesn't have food. My son doesn't have clothes. That's what gets me going every single day. And it's having your back against the wall. I think I almost it I don't know how to put this besides saying it as bluntly as this. I wish more people would hit rock bottom and have their back against the wall because it would uncover a version of themselves that they don't even know exists inside of them until they're in that moment. Because I would have never done any of this stuff unless I was without a job and had zero options. I would have never done any of this. And so for me, it's like, if you want to go out there and go for something, I hope you're not in those situations. Like, I hope you have like a plan, like, and it doesn't like, but I think that people underestimate how much power there is in not having anything to do but move forward. There's a lot of power in that, man. There's a ton of power in that.
Yeah, for sure. And it actually just brought me back to the days when I was deciding after I met with Greg and he offered me to, sure, you can come work here for free and learn in our operations team and be part of that office incubator where you can learn how actual real world business works. But I had to make the decision whether I was going to drop out of school at the time to do it. And I took the leap of faith because I thought you could always go back to school if it doesn't work out. Um, but yeah, so glad I did because it was really like, here you go. It's time to go.
Yeah. And dude, and it's one of those situations, man, where I think, especially if you're, again, I don't want to keep going back to like the age thing, but man, if you're younger, go for it earlier than later. Because you're never in a spot where like everything's right, like the people that I know, they're like, oh, I want to wait until this level happens and then I'm going to do this. It's like, no, fucking rip the band-aid off and just go for it. Have you found that, man, that you've enjoyed that a lot more, or when you just go for it and figure it out? Because you're never at a spot, at least that's what I've realized in my life, man. You're never at a spot to where everything's going to be good. And I think that's what stops so many people from going for it, is because they're like, oh, I need to get this before I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's just so many anxieties in life, and it's only getting harder out there. It's not gonna get easier, especially we were on a great bull run these last 5 years, I'd say, and
Yeah.
we don't know what the next year is gonna hold, but don't be scared. There's always gonna be anxieties in life that can prevent you from moving forward, and you just can't let that happen. You can't let that slow you down. You can't focus on all the scariness that the world promotes and just focus on you wanting to be the best version of yourself and see where that takes you because you have no idea where it's gonna lead.
I think that, especially, coming up into whatever the hell happens over these next couple of years, I think winners are going to win no matter what, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
winners are going to find a way to win no matter what the economy looks like, what the market looks like. And that's what I've really experienced in business. Is it's like, if you want it bad enough, man, if that pain is really as bad, you'll find a fucking way to make it better. Because I'll never go back. At this point, I'll never go back to where I was, because that version, man, I fucking hated myself. I was just too afraid to admit it. I was masking it in other areas of my life. And I think that no matter what, it doesn't matter the economy, nobody's going to make your life better but you. No elected official, none of that bullshit, man. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way to get it done. And I wish more younger individuals would know that. Like, because maybe, you're around people who are like, oh, get a real job or do this and do that.
Mm,
Man, fuck those people. They're just too afraid to do
yeah.
it. They're out. Don't let anybody else's insecurity stop you from achieving what you want in life.
Yeah, and like how we are talking about it before, when you're a young one, you wanna join some sexy industry that the world promotes, and you're looking at freight, no, that's not a sexy industry when you're on the outside looking in, but once you're on the inside and you get the ball rolling, it's pretty sexy once you're in it and seeing all the benefits of your hard work.
How sexy is it to know? How great is it to know as a young man right now that you will always be employed for the rest of your life because of the industry that you work in? Because, like, frankly, if freight stops moving, we're all fucked. So, like, let's call that what it
Yeah,
is.
exactly. Like it's not recession proof, but people are
It,
gonna need to eat their groceries and
it's
they're
a
always gonna be a supply chain.
it's about as recession proof of an industry as you can find yourself in, because shit's always moving on a truck. So it's like, think about it like this, man. Like, the career path and like the trajectory that you're at getting into it at 21 when you first started in this, man. Like, dude, you're already 5 years in. Like, you're in it for life, bro. Like, whether you want to admit it or not, you're in this shit for life at this point. But that's a great thing, because you're going to be like a face of like that next generation of young transportation professionals. You know what I mean? Like, you have that capability to get out there and reach that audience, because you're in an industry that is always going to have an option if you're going to work hard. Not like, and I'm like a firm believer in that with a lot of industries, because like, if you're a badass and you work hard, you'll never go without work ever. But I also understand that if you're going to choose an industry, choose freight, choose trucking,
Yeah.
choose transportation, man. This is the greatest industry on earth. Like, this is the literal backbone of the world economy, is trucking. There's no other way to put it. That's what keeps me coming back all the time, man. I love it. Like, dude, I don't view truckloads of lumber anymore of just truckloads of lumber, man. Like that's literally going to build somebody's dream house or like a full
Mhm.
truckload of milk, dude. Like that's going to feed somebody. Like that's when like I flip my mentality with a lot of this stuff because like, and it helps it in like the really shitty times, like because again, it's not always sunshine and gumdrops out there. But when you flip your mentality on things of like that's the why behind it, man, it makes this job fun. And then it also helps, like, I'm a son of a truck driver, so, like, I get giddy when I see trucks running down the freeway. I like, and when I hear them hit the Jake brake going down a hill, man, I love that noise. So it's like, I just get a lot of excitement about this stuff, and it's like, that's what I want to pass on to the next generation, and then the generation after that and everything else to keep people excited about this industry.
Yeah, that's good because I know when I first started, and sometimes I still deal with it, looking for the sort of the motivation from external factors, whereas really the only fruits of your labor that you see are increasing your bank account every week or every other week as your loads to start to deliver. But you yeah, you can't really miss out on thinking about where all your product is going and what it actually leads to keep the economy running. I know it's hard for you to picture when you're in the office and just looking outside your backyard or wherever office you're in, but when you start thinking about that why you're doing it and what it's actually accomplishing in the long run, it can be that external motivator that a lot of people need to push themselves.
Dude, absolutely. So what's as we're kind of wrapping things up here, man, like what's if you could tell anybody right now, whether they're in the industry or not, like what's one thing that they should do to look into getting into freight as a whole? Or what, maybe jumping out on their own. Maybe they're, they're young and they're married, they're married like you. There's a lot of external things on them, man. Why should they go for it?
I just think that you have nothing to lose. You're not putting your house on the line or your mortgage or anything on the line to do it with SPI, especially. I don't know how other agencies work, but with SPI, you're not taking any of the risk. So there really is a zero risk to unlimited reward. I don't know any other industry that provides that, to be honest, where zero risk. I don't have a degree. A lot of people in this industry don't have a degree where they spent $100,000 in student loans trying to get a job. And it's pretty crazy to have the option for unlimited benefit with zero risk. And that's just what I found that it provided.
Dude, I love that, man. It's true. It is. There's very, very low risk to a very, very high reward in this for sure,
Yeah.
man. So, dude, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me today, man. How does anybody reach out to you and find out if they want to connect with you? Fuck, maybe they're like, dude, I want to like be an agent, or I'm young, I want to get into the freight game as well, man. How does anybody reach out to you?
Yeah, you can always reach out to me on my email, tguthrie@spi3pl.com. But I think anybody, they'll better served if they reach out to Mike at SPI. I'm sure you can find all of his numbers on the SPI homepage. He's just the best. He's such a good motivator. He can help you. He'll do anything he can to make sure you get in the industry and succeed in the industry. He does so much to help every agent at SPI succeed, and I can't thank him enough for all he's done for all of us.
No, absolutely, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you joining me. And if you guys have made it this far in the episode, chances are you're already subscribed. But if you're not and you saw value in what we talked about here, subscribe and share the show, you guys, because at the end of the day, if you guys see value in this, your network's going to see value in this as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.